Every morning, a man faced his mirror, not out of any fondness for his reflection but rather due to a palpable fear of what wasn't looking back. He paraded through life like a superstar, tailored suits, perfect hair, and an ego that could rival a rock star's. People gawped at him, envying even the air he breathed. But behind closed doors, when the spotlight dimmed and the world grew quiet, he fell apart. Left alone with the echo of silence that loomed larger than any applause. Beneath the confident exterior of this man lay a labyrinth of insecurities. He craved constant validation, always teetering on the edge of dread, terrified of being seen as just another face in the crowd. The world painted him as untouchable, but inside, he was a delicate flower, perpetually thirsty for appreciation. The duality of his existence perfectly encapsulated the woeful tale of a narcissist. The one who dazzles the masses, yet trembles at the thought of unremarkability. Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist, the corner of the internet for deep feelers, quiet analyzers, and people who've been called too full of themselves when they were really just starving for validation. Today, we're diving into the psychology of narcissism, not to judge, but to understand. Here, we're not pointing fingers, we're tracing scars. If you've ever dealt with someone like that or recognized a piece of them inside yourself, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, share this with a friend who overthinks human nature, and drop a comment below. Are you the mirror or the reflection? Let's explore what makes the human mind ache and shine together. Narcissism is more intricate than the cliches of arrogance or vanity. Forget the textbook definitions. It's not merely about being in love with oneself. Rather, it's often rooted in a profound absence of genuine self-love, leading to a relentless quest for external admiration. For the narcissist, the game wasn't about self-adoration but about fabricating a mask, one that obscures the cavern of insecurity dwelling within. They became addicted to the facade, always seeking the approval of others, never satiated by self-acceptance. Let's be real for a moment. Who hasn't indulged in a little social media check-in, desperately refreshing their notifications for signs of affirmation? We've all spun tales to cast ourselves in a more glorious light, polishing our narratives to impress the crowd. This is a taste of the narcissistic dance, an unending pursuit of validation, a fear of fading into the background. For the narcissist, however, this desire is not just a casual craving, but a way of life, a never-ending quest for significance. Understanding the narcissist's psyche requires a glimpse into their world. Picture residing in a glass house. The walls are see-through, and everyone has front-row seats to your life. Just when the exposure grows too overwhelming, a narcissist resorts to painting those walls with colorful illusions, distracting both themselves and others from the reality of an empty room waiting to be filled. Those vivid brushes strokes are their way of coping with the suffocating transparency of existence. Researchers have unearthed an astonishing insight. Narcissists often emerge from two starkly different childhood backgrounds. Some are showered with excessive praise, hailed as perfection incarnate. Others dwell in shadowed silence, neglected or only acknowledged when they achieve monumental feats. Both scenarios impart a disheartening lesson. Love is conditional, tied inexorably to performance. This notion manifests in adulthood, where the child evolves into a person who feels that being oneself is unsafe. And so, our man in the mirror camouflages his fragility with a facade of success, crafting a self that can take a bow when the curtain falls. With every applause, he builds an illusion and armor that shields him from feeling vulnerable. But at the end of the day, when the lights go dim, he's left wrestling with an uncomfortable truth. The need to perform drowns out the comforting whisper of authenticity, leaving a hollowness that applause can't fill. Thus spins the tragic wheel of narcissism, a quest for love that shackles instead of liberates. As the spotlight shines brightly on a narcissist, it's easy to mistake that glimmer for genuine fulfillment. Yet, the more applause they collect, the more they tend to feel like empty vessels in a sea of admiration. Applause seems to fuel the performance but starves the true essence, leaving their souls yearning for something more profound. Close to a narcissist, it's like standing near a black hole. No matter how much love you pour in, it never feels quite enough. But what's behind that bravado? Surprisingly, these individuals aren't monsters, just humans ensnared in their survival strategies. Their arrogance, think of it as layers of armor, coldness, more like shields against fear, manipulation. That's just their clumsy way of holding together a fragile existence. It's truly a sobering realization that, despite their grandiose exteriors, a deeper struggle lies beneath the surface. Neuroscience even backs this up, revealing that narcissists often have heightened brain activity in areas related to self-reflection. Imagine constantly scanning a room like a hawk. Who am I charming? Who adores me? Who's giving me the cold shoulder? This relentless self-monitoring leads to an exhausting inner life, while their outer persona exudes effortless confident smiles, polished stories, and striking postures, all part of the act. So why do we flock to these larger-than-life personalities? The answer isn't pretty. Charisma has an alluring draw, and confidence, yes, even when it's just a well-rehearsed show, captures our attention. Our society is guilty of rewarding those who master the art of performance while sidelining authenticity. Think about it. The loudest voices often dominate the stage, overshadowing the wise whisperers hiding in the corners. And narcissists have perfected the game of staying unforgettable. But here's the irony: what propels them to the top often leaves them utterly alone in private. True closeness demands a gut-wrenching leap into vulnerability, admitting fears, flaws, and the simple truth of being human. Such bare honesty feels like exposing an unhealable wound for narcissists, who prefer to stick with wearing their masks. Consequently, they frequently undermine the very connections they seek, creating a heartbreaking paradox. Consider this: narcissists require people to survive, yet they dread the thought of others glimpsing their true selves. They crave the sweet nectar of admiration while simultaneously fearing the depth of real intimacy. Their hunger for love often morphs into a demand for unrelenting, almost worshipful validation. The dynamics of relationships with narcissists resemble a dizzying cycle, spinning through charm, intensity, abandonment, and then cold withdrawal. Psychologists aptly label this the narcissistic wound, a deep emotional scar cultivated long before they had the capacity to make different choices. So, when we encounter narcissists, it's essential to shift our perception from viewing them as villains to understanding them as wounded children, having constructed formidable fortresses for protection against a world they found too threatening. However, let's not stop at individualizing this perspective. Narcissism reflects a broader cultural phenomenon, a societal mirror that reveals something profoundly unsettling. By recognizing the collective role we play, we can challenge the structures that elevate performance over authenticity and ultimately seek a healthier balance that benefits everyone. In a world bursting with curated Instagram moments and meticulously crafted social media profiles, it's almost a wonder we haven't all transformed into mini narcissists. Each day, we're bombarded with reminders to showcase our best selves, leading many to chase admiration over authenticity. Let's face it, we love an attention grabber. Criticizing narcissists is easy, but when was the last time you didn't hit follow on that overly polished influencer? They're just wearing a more ostentatious version of the masks we all seem to wear. Let's dive deeper into the psyche of the narcissist, shall we? Behind those flashy facades often lies a tangled web of fear, longing, and pain sometimes making the self-absorbed behavior more relatable than we'd care to admit. It's like an elaborate dance, where we judge the performer without acknowledging the symphony of struggles playing out backstage. When we simplify narcissism to just ego or arrogance, we miss out on the humanity that's intricately woven into their story, the real struggles behind the shiny veneer. But can these self-absorbed souls change their ways? You might be asking this very question, and the truth is, it's not a straightforward answer. At its core, narcissism presents a paradox. The very mask that shields them from vulnerability is the same one that keeps them isolated. They crave connection but hide behind layers of bravado, fearing the exposure that comes with removing it. Sometimes a wake-up call, a messy breakup. A faltering career can create a shift, sparking the urge to drop that mask and seek real love instead of mere admiration. Imagine a loving therapist gently guiding them back to the wounded child they've been protecting all along. It's a journey that's less about swift transformation and more about slow, painstaking progress. We all know that peeling back the layers of defense isn't a stroll through the park. It's often a treacherous climb up a steep mountain. But for some, with unwavering support and self-reflection, the possibility for growth becomes tantalizingly real. As we delve more into this exploration, it might surprise you to learn that some narcissists actually develop empathy over time. They learn to accept imperfections both in themselves and others and discover that real love doesn't require performance. It's about softening the rigid ego instead of obliterating it. Imagine a world where they suddenly realize they can simply be enough without being extraordinary. That's the crux of change. Not needing to be invincible, but just being human. Here's something to ponder. Aren't we all a little bit narcissistic? Sure, we might not parade around with a grandiose sense of self, but we surely curate our lives before sharing them with the world. Moments of vulnerability often feel heavier than the masks we wear, even if our masks aren't as conspicuous. We too find ourselves longing for admiration, sometimes preferring applause over authentic connection. The stories of narcissists resonate because they reflect our own struggles in a society obsessed with appearances. So, let's take a moment to consider the threads that bind us. In the end, every story of the narcissist may just be a mirror showing everyone's desire to be seen and loved for who they truly are. Exploring narcissism isn't solely about pointing fingers. It's an invitation to examine our own lives, to peel off our carefully crafted masks, and to embrace our beautifully messy, vulnerable selves in a world that often worships the show. The rise of social media, what a wild ride. With a few taps of a finger, we've crafted our online personas, complete with glossy profiles and an army of followers. It's like a digital masquerade ball where the like button is our applause, and the curated images are our best-kept secrets. Every post is a little seed of narcissism that we water and nurture daily, chasing attention in an era obsessed with validation. Let's be honest, sometimes it feels like our lives have morphed into a never-ending quest for the perfect selfie. Now, don't get me wrong, not everyone surfing the web is draped in narcissistic splendor, but our modern culture certainly cranks up those tendencies to 11. When we point fingers at narcissists, it might just be our own thirst for approval staring back at us, magnified like a funhouse mirror. Talk about a reality check. The lines blur between seeking affirmation and becoming the very embodiment of it. And who doesn't want to shine like a diamond in the digital realm? Here's a juicy twist. Researchers have exposed different flavors of narcissism. Enter the grandiose narcissist, strutting around like they own the place, confident, charming, and sometimes a bit too much. On the flip side, we have the hidden mirage, the vulnerable narcissist. You won't catch them boasting, but they harbor the same hunger for validation, often masked by their quiet demeanor. Recognizing these differences, essential. Because the real struggles lurk beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. Now picture it, being up close and personal with a narcissist. It starts off as a dream, doesn't it? Their intoxicating charm makes you feel like the star of the show. But wait, suddenly, it feels very one-sided. The endless quest for admiration becomes exhausting. You reach out, yearning for authenticity and connection. But the closer you get, the further they pull away. It's more like trying to grasp mist than a genuine embrace. Just when you think you've uncovered the real them, you find a cold, defensive shell instead. Here's the kicker, though. Narcissists aren't just those manipulative creatures lurking in the shadows. They're also survivors. They grew up learning that love comes with strings, perform or be left in the dust. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it provides insight into their performances. They're motivated by pain, longing, and a desperate fear of rejection. When you peel back the layers, the story shifts from mere ego to a heartbreaking narrative of survival. So, what's the takeaway? Empathy. Understanding doesn't mean condoning their behavior. It means recognizing the hurt behind the mask. Yes, we should absolutely keep our boundaries firm, but that doesn't remove the need to hold space for their pain. Narcissists aren't evil villains, they're just people grappling with their own demons. And what about us? The mirror reflects back more than just their flaws. It challenges us to ask, where do we hide behind our own masks, chasing validation instead of authentic connection? Let's dive deeper. Take a moment to ponder. Are we not all performers in our own right? Social media is like a talent show with unseen judges cheering from behind screens. We might opt for filters over authenticity, longing to be seen as extraordinary instead of just ourselves. The examination of narcissism isn't just an exploration of them, it's a significant journey into understanding our own motivations and behaviors. After all, isn't that the plot twist that keeps us all engaged in this chaotic drama called life? True strength isn't about being invulnerable, it's about embracing our own vulnerabilities. A narcissist's struggle can teach us that the soul craves acceptance more than applause. Instead of seeking admiration, it simply wants to be known. Imagine if one day, a narcissist could cast off their facade and look in the mirror, whispering, "I am enough." That's the moment of liberation, the gateway to healing a dream we all secretly yearn for. Now, imagine the paradox. Narcissists, despite their bravado, hunger for love more than anything. Yet, their fear of rejection builds these ironclad defenses that keep love at arm's length. Isn't that a familiar theme for many of us? We long to receive love just as we are, yet we nervously shuffle and polish ourselves, afraid of what might happen if we show our true selves. It's a dance of performance and authenticity that keeps us at a distance, while deep down, our souls crave closeness. When you think about narcissism, realize it excludes mere ego issues. It taps into the very core of the human dilemma. There's often a child inside, whispering, "If I'm not perfect, I won't be loved." The child grows into an adult clinging to that belief even after years have passed. We all carry that shadow within us, the fear of being unlovable just as we are, and it becomes this unending cycle of self-judgment. So how do we, as a collective, start peeling away our masks? The question isn't just about analyzing narcissists. It's about living authentically without the protective layers. We need to rethink our relationships and embrace being ordinary, flawed, and still utterly lovable. The quest to discover authentic connections isn't just intriguing, it's vital. The deeper quest pushes us beyond the limits of psychology straight into the realm of philosophy. The answer to this existential inquiry may be simpler than expected. It starts with an undeniable courage, the bravery to face our insecurities head-on instead of hiding them behind a cheery facade. It's about being vulnerable enough to reveal our flaws and letting others show theirs. We need to shift from seeking admiration to striving for genuine connections, where love blossoms free from performance anxieties. The narrative surrounding narcissism serves as both a warning and a reminder. It warns about the dangers of getting lost in a mask that can suffocate our true selves. It's a subtle reminder that applause and validation aren't what we yearn for. It is love, pure and simple. Beneath the layers of performance lies our deep-seated desire for connection, and the awareness of that longing fuels the courage within us to be real. As we peek behind the mask of a narcissist, a mirror reflects our own hidden insecurities. When we acknowledge their wounds, we get to nurture our own. Maybe, just maybe, if we summon enough courage to embrace our authentic selves, we'll inspire others to strip away their masks too. And in that shared openness, the most wounded among us might finally discover the beauty of being seen, perfectly intact in their imperfect humanness.